Hey everyone, this is Sean Anderson. This will be the final presentation of the semester. We're going to be talking about SSH, very important thing. You'll see why. First up, I'm just going to give you a little lay of the land here, some things we're going to be talking about over the presentation. First up, we're going to be doing the technical discussion, talk a little bit about the history and a lot of the features behind SSH, and then after that we're moving into more a specific discussion on some of the hardening details of SSH. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So, you'll be asking, what is SSH? Well, you're probably not asking that because you've done your own research on this, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. So SSH, or Secure Socket Shell, and its main function is to provide secure access remotely. Basically, it encrypts data that is being transferred over the internet, mainly in like transferring files, messages, just really any form of data. Okay. So some more detail on that. SSH listens over TCP port 22. It was actually created in 1995 by this guy named Tatu Yolinen. There are different types of encryption, different ways of using SSH, and we'll get into those. The first step is symmetric encryption. In this method, there's only one key is used to encrypt and decrypt the file that is being sent. It's created using an exchange algorithm between the locations. Next up, I think is a more common, more widely used form of encryption, which is asymmetric encryption. And this method includes two different keys, a public key and a private key. The private key is yours, the public key is just out there. The relationship between these two is that the private one will decrypt the files sent from public ones. The private key is static and should be well guarded, and the public key is temporary and is one that is shared between the senders. Okay. Next, we're going to move into some hardening recommendations. What you're going to want to do is you're going to create a backup configuration file in case you damage the files while you're editing. It's just something that you should do, honestly, when editing anything. You just have a backup in case you completely mess it up and you have to restart from zero. But then you won't have to do that because you get a backup configuration file. You can create a whitelist or a blacklist for users depending if they're trusted or non-trusted. This is just okay. Anyway, next up, you should use multi-factor authentication. Some brief things on multi-factor authentication is something you have, something you know, something you are. These are all just kind of very simple things for hardening. Not really too in-depth, just kind of general practices that will help you out. Some more hardening is use public key authentication. This can be immune to brute force attacks. By the way, this is also just asymmetric authentication that we talked about earlier. This is why it's more commonly used, is because of these security advantages it provides. Although that does mean you do have to guard it, because if your private key is compromised, then that is really not a good thing and you'll be put in a very bad situation. After you've done this, you want to go ahead and disable password logins, because this is part of why it's not vulnerable to brute force attacks, because you won't have passwords because you'll only be using those keys. So as long as you keep your keys safe, you don't have to worry about these two things. And final hardening is that you're going to want to set a timeout interval, and what this will do is terminate any sessions that are not actively being used. That way you can't just leave something up and someone come in, we're not on it, make advantage of it, that sort of thing. And yeah, that about does it for now. It's been nice making these. See you guys around. Have a nice day. This is so short. All right, goodbye.